part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit TampaBayRecycles.org.
Flossing in the morning is a really great way to keep your teeth healthy and start the day. But when you're through, here's what you do. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. There's a problem lots of people don't know, called sanitary sewer overflow. A condition buried deep in the ground, inside a pipe where bad clouds are found. It's a problem we can all help solve, so throw it in the trash, don't flush it. Baby wipes, bandages, cotton pads, paper towels, dental floss, clog up bad. Medicines, kitty litter, cotton swabs, hair. Throw them in the trash, don't flush it. It just takes a second to do the right thing, so toss it and let's keep our pipes clean. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Even if it says you can, don't flush it. If you're having any doubts, don't flush it. One more time, don't flush it.
This is Dave. Dave doesn't know his home's flood zone and was not able to heed flood warnings. Dave and his home are soaked. This is Noah. Noah is an informed citizen. He was warned in advance about potential flooding in his area. Noah took precautions. Noah is dry.
And I saved the animals too.
Good job, Noah. When it comes to flood warnings, be like Noah, not like Dave. For more information, visit hcfl.gov.net. Be safe, be informed, know your flood zone.
Oh man, here comes Arnie again.
Check this out.
What's up, Arnie?
What are you doing? You made a mess in my hallway.
Hey Arnie, looks like you could use a hero.
You don't need superpowers to be a hero. Help make Hillsborough bully-free.
Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look. No plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit TampaBayRecycles.org.
Flossing in the morning is a really great way to keep your teeth healthy and start the day. But when you're through, here's what you do. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. There's a problem lots of people don't know, called sanitary sewer overflow. A condition buried deep in the ground, inside a pipe where bad clouds are found. It's a problem we can all help solve, so throw it in the trash, don't flush it. Baby wipes, bandages, cotton pads, paper towels, dental floss, clog up bad. Medicines, kitty litter, cotton swabs, hair. Throw them in the trash, don't flush it. It just takes a second to do the right thing, so toss it and let's keep our pipes clean. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Even if it says you can, don't flush it. If you're having any doubts, don't flush it. One more time, don't flush it.
This is Dave. Dave doesn't know his home's flood zone and was not able to heed flood warnings. Dave and his home are soaked. This is Noah. Noah is an informed citizen. He was warned in advance about potential flooding in his area. Noah took precautions. Noah is dry.
And I saved the animals too.
Good job, Noah. When it comes to flood warnings, be like Noah, not like Dave. For more information, visit hcfl.gov.net. Be safe, be informed, know your flood zone.
Oh man, here comes Arnie again.
Check this out.
What's up, Arnie?
What are you doing? You made a mess in my hallway.
Good morning, and welcome to your Hillsborough County MPO meeting. Glad to see everyone here this morning. Would you please rise for the pledge and invocation?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious and Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that you allow us to come together today to make decisions to make this county a better place for all citizens to live, work, and play. We ask that you regulate our minds and humble our hearts as we make these decisions. Father, we ask that you be with the Bush family on the passing of one of the greatest presidents we've ever seen, George W.H. Bush. Regardless of what side of the aisle you may be on, he was one that not only fought for this country, but as a Navy pilot, but also fought for this country as an elected official and gave time and effort to taking away from his family to do that. We ask that you protect those that put on our military uniforms and our first responders as they go out and put their lives on the line for us every day. And when our work is done here, we ask you to take us back to our homes and find everything safe and sound. These are all blessed. We ask you in your righteous and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Before we get started, we would like to welcome 2 new members to the board. I've got to get used to saying this because I keep saying something different at another meeting. The first one I want to introduce is Commissioner Overman. Commissioner Overman was elected in November, and she chose this board to be a part of. I don't know why, but she did. So I'm going to ask if she has a few words she want to say.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to serving on this board as a, well, actually, the last meeting I was regarding what the MPO was at my last CAC meeting for this board. So it's interesting being on the other side of the table, and I'm looking forward to serving our public well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, next newest member is Commissioner Mary Ellen Smith. Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. It's a very exciting time to be planning transportation for our county, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I also have sat on that side of this room many times, and so I want to represent the people here as best I can. Thank you.
You were on that side. Now you're on this side. It's a big difference.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. To everyone on the board, remember when you speak into the mic because it's being recorded. It might not sound like it's on, but it is on. So speak into the mic. May we have approval of the October 30th, 2018 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Councilman Cohen to approve those minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We're now moving to public comment. I have some cards here for public comment. The first one, I think this is Joseph Lugo. Yes, sir. Come forward. Each person has 3 minutes to address us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, members of the MPO board, distinguished guests who are here today. My name is Joseph Lugo, and I just wanted to call and come in front of you all and explain to you some ideas I have for mass transit for the Tampa Bay community. These ideas for the mass transit I had distinguished when I was a member of the United States Air Force and serving overseas in the United Kingdom. While I was overseas, I noticed a mass transit system that I believe would be great not only for the citizens of Tampa Bay, but also for the surrounding communities as well. The idea for the mass transit is called TRAX. It stands for Tampa Bay Regional Area Connector System. And the slogan would be taking people off roads and putting them on track. So the technology for this track system is different than the light rail, which has been proposed here before. The technology is based on PRT, which stands for Personalized Rapid Transit. There's an example of that personalized rapid transit in Morgantown, West Virginia. It's very cost-effective. It's very efficient. While I was overseas in England, I did notice that system being put to use in the London Heathrow International Airport. And so with this idea of the personalized rapid transit, this idea is very adaptable to the citizens of Tampa Bay, very cost-effective. It's something that I believe our citizens would be willing to look at and would be willing to see. As we've seen in the past, Tampa Bay once had the largest light rail network in the Southeast. It had about 50 miles, and I believe we've kind of lost our initiative there. But I think now with this new idea with TRAX, I believe that we can see Tampa Bay move forward and help us be cost-effective. As you all know, one of the biggest things that's hampered this community is transportation, and I believe that with TRAX, we can move Tampa Bay forward, and we can take people off roads, and we can put them back on track. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lugo, do you have that in writing anywhere?
Yes, sir, I do.
Could you get that to our staff for us,
Yes,
please?
yes, sir.
Thank you for your service in the greatest branch of the military service, the Air Force.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I was a member of the Air Force. So.
Yeah, I was a little biased there, just a little.
Next speaker is Kim DeBozer. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Kim DeBozier, and I currently am co-chair of the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce Transportation Council. So on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Chamber and our 1,300 member companies, I am here this morning to speak with you to support funding for the Tampa Bay Next West Shore Interchange project. We believe it's a critical regional infrastructure project, and we would love for it to be established as the region's top transportation priority. The West Shore Interchange is really where economic, employment, and entertainment activities converge. It's 10 square mile business district that includes 4,000 businesses, 93,000 employees, 250 restaurants, 38 hotels, Tampa International Airport, and a leading connector between Pinellas and Hillsborough counties, of course. So with an annual $16 billion economic impact, it's imperative we work together to improve traffic circulation in that area. So completion of that project is essential because it will alleviate existing bottlenecks, add capacity to I-275, and provide the direct express lanes to the airport. It's really more than an investment in just infrastructure. It's really an investment in our region's future. You have the opportunity today to support that funding with a unified voice and ensure the following: that our goods, services, and workforce can continue to move safely and efficiently around Tampa Bay, that our economic drivers can continue to compete in the global workplace, that the West Shore District can continue to thrive. So we ask you to support funding of the Tampa Bay Next West Shore Interchange project as the region's top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Tim, is this Nocera?
It's Tom Nocera, thank you.
Sorry.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new members. I was here at your last meeting, and I had requested the opportunity to make a presentation about another new technology that's been developed by a company called Skytrend, who we represent here in the Tampa Bay region. We would like to, again, make our request to be able to make a presentation. 7 or 8 minutes is all we'll need, and I look forward to being able to tell you all about it at a future meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next speaker is Michelle Cookson.
Good morning, Michelle Cookson. So glad to be here today. Thank you for your time. The people of Hillsborough County have spoken loudly and clearly in the recent election, and we demand transit now, mobility choices, and people first to be the MPO's priority. I'm here representing the thousands of Sunshine citizens who will continue to keep watch over the MPO and expect thoughtful, wise action from you. That this board's decisions reflect our tax dollars being spent on effective transportation solutions and not wasted on costly, ineffective highway widening. Make no mistake, continuing to support TBX/TB Next highway widening and toll scheme is unacceptable. And the citizens expect rapid, decisive action from the MPO to implement projects and policies that benefit Hillsborough County. Focus on and represent the interests of the citizens of this county first. That means no fake transit. This MPO must not agree to funding FDOT's fake BRT project. It's nothing but cover for a highway widening and $400 million plus in parking garages. We need to stop calling this a catalyst. The people are the catalyst forward for real transit that works. Speaking of TBX, FDOT must show a no-build option in the current highway SEIS process. The downtown interchange is already a burden. It's destroyed neighborhoods. We don't need to blow it out further and decimate our urban core. I'm also here as a member of the Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association, and we stand with many members of a growing coalition that says the time and the opportunity is here now. It's time to act and to say yes to moving forward on building several connected transit systems that will immediately impact improved transportation. a modernized expanded streetcar system, increase more frequent local HART bus service, true gold standard BRT on local corridors, not the highway, and traffic calming and transform streets that put people first so we can have increased walkability, cycling, and safety. We say yes to implementing the projects that solve existing issues with unsafe roads. We need you to commit to seriously making the Vision Zero objectives a reality and funding that. Speed up the Heights Mobility Project and implement desperately needed safety measures faster. We say yes, and we did say yes to all for transportation so that we can do these things. The citizens of Hillsborough County stand ready, engaged like never before, and excited to do this work. So let's go. Thank you.
Now, this next signature is hard to make out, but because I've seen it so many times, I think I know what it is. Chris Vila.
So before I begin, has everybody got my map? Wanda, I'm not sure, have you had a chance to pass that? Okay, if everybody can just grab that, please. I'll try to be brief. First of all, before I begin the speech, I just want to remind everybody that we're under a SEIS. That is an environmental review for the Tampa Bay area for the TBNX project. We should see that go through. We cannot rush certain parts of this ahead of time. So I think it would put this board, the MPO organization, in jeopardy to do so. So first, I want to start off here. It's amazing to see some advocates who spent many hours on this side of the podium, voicing from their hearts and minds now as leaders before us. We need mobility every day, whether we use it or gain services from it. Ironically, mobility can isolate us, harm us with toxic highways through neighborhoods or transportation projects that leapfrog over environmental studies. Equity, access, opportunity are essential values for any transportation plan. I'm here to underscore that today. Please look at my handout. The red line is Brightline's preferred alignment through my neighborhood, which would displace many of us and myself. The star is where I live. The past 120 hours have been troubling for my family in historic Ybor. I had to painfully explain to my wife, who grew up in the house we live, that a train might take us out. Brightline has filed a HSR proposal showing a preferred 60-foot alignment that would split my neighborhood block in two. As you're aware, Ybor has been previously split by I-4 and then some as more of our streets became the highway. With the impact from the Brightline alignment, one would have to endure added noise, vibration, particulates, further lack of local neighborhood access, overall reduced function of the neighborhood, historic architectural impacts in the landmark district, raising the bar on the level impacts from the interchange, and I-4, which can easily allow a greater degree of impacts and potentially more interstate construction. Currently, it's apparent that neither FDOT nor Brightline, with their boilerplate language found in their proposals, seem to recognize cumulative damages, as most of this has been occurred in my neighborhood and documented. Neighborhoods like mine are viewed as a sandbox by FDOT, and now it would seem to be to a private entity. We are reduced in value as a subsidy for others far from us that gain mobility from our health and economic impacts. I believe we all want high-speed rail and mass transit. But do we accept predatory process to seize land opportunities in struggling neighborhoods caused by FDOT's neighborhood dividing interstate complex, reducing my CRA for a regional project, a private one, being by a private entity? I still want the MPO board to declare no build for TBNX. I also hope that they honor the SEIS process. There is no need for additional lanes, especially with new funding for transit. However, Brightline Virgin is on an aggressive timetable to be completed by 2022. I might no longer be here by that time if this happens. I want Brightline's alignment to not occur in or near my neighborhood. I want a full environmental impact statement study on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For those of you who are speaking, I thought we had a clock, the 3-minute clock on the side over there. We don't, so we have it here. So if at about 30 seconds left, I'll kind of wave my hand for you to wrap it up. In that 3 minutes, I'll tell you. But you've been adhering to it anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it. This may be the next problem. Rick Fernandez. Morning, Mr. Fernandez.
Good morning. And a joyful welcome to Commissioners Overman and Smith. It's great to see you all there. Rick Fernandez, 2906 North Elmore. I think you all know I'm the president of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. I also serve on your MPO CAC as vice chair. compliments of appointment by Commissioner Miller. I'm not here today to speak on behalf of the CAC. I'm here to speak as an individual member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and specific to one item on your agenda. That's under your action items 8, Charlie, the It's Time Tampa Bay survey results, and specifically the survey results as they relate to the boulevard, the deconstruction of Interstate 275 north of the downtown interchange and conversion of that thoroughfare to a grand boulevard transit corridor. Now, those of you who took the survey know that that particular concept, the boulevard concept, was presented as part of one of 3 scenarios. I believe it was considered the Beltway and Boulevard concept. It might have been item B among the scenarios. And the result of the survey was reported to us during our CAC meeting 2 weeks ago, as it will be to you this morning. And as it relates specifically to that deconstruction project and the highway to boulevard conversion, the result was reported as a singular bullet point, rather dismissively in my opinion, that there was low public support for that particular idea. No further comment made. I want to make sure that this board is aware that at the Citizens Advisory Committee, on motion made by me, there was an addendum to that. It's noted in your committee reports that I suspect Gina will be presenting to you shortly after the comments are closed. The CAC voted to approve the survey results, but recommended that the I-275 Boulevard conversion concept currently has low public support due to a lack of understanding by the public and therefore still warrants further study. That motion was made by me, seconded. There was discussion, and there were even some friendly amendments offered. But ultimately, that wording was passed, and the motion passed by a vote of 12 to 13. Those are 12 individuals that you all had a hand in appointing. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that. There is concern on my part, certainly, that to simply accept the recommendation as proposed nakedly from the survey is basically a double tap to the head of this concept. I certainly believe that the boulevard concept still requires further study and analysis, and I hope someone on the board will pick that idea up moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Point of clarification. Point of clarification. You said it passed 12 to 13. Are there 25 members? Did it pass by 13? I'm just trying to understand what that vote was.
12 voted to approve the addition of the language explaining our sense, at least, that the lack of approval was as a result of a lack of understanding.
And that was 12 out of 13?
12 voted for, 3 voted against. I'm sorry, I may have misspoken myself. 15 people voted.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this Michael Marino? Good morning.
Good morning. On behalf of the West Shore Alliance, we ask you to support the letters in your packet today calling on FDOT to advance the West Shore interchange as a regional priority. To be clear, the West Shore interchange today is actually 3 bottlenecks: 275, the Veterans, and the local neighborhood streets in West Shore. The reconstructed interchange will address all 3 of these. The airport is growing as a passenger airport and as a freight hub, but when people and goods leave the property, the first thing they run into is that 275 congestion. If we want to be an international destination, if we want to make sure your packages get to your house on time, we have to make sure that those customers are not routed into an interchange that's been basically outdated as long as I've been alive. And if you live in Northwest Hillsborough, your only option is to go through that 275 interchange. There's no transit that gets you from where my parents live, from Citrus Park, into West Shore or into downtown. The service goes to the airport, which is a great facility, but not a transit hub. So the interchange will provide a regional transit corridor from West Shore to downtown and a direct connection for the current express lanes that are on the Veterans Expressway. In speaking about the individual neighborhood, There's 97 or 93,000, between 97 and 93,000 people who work in West Shore. There's another 15,000 people who live there. Those two groups of people have only 2 north-south routes in the district. When the interchange is rebuilt, reconstructed, 3 new roads will be connected: Rio, Trask, and Occident. There are complete streets projects for West Shore Boulevard and Lois Avenue that are being planned. Those complete streets projects cannot go forward unless those 3 additional roads are created. So if we want to have more economic development opportunities, we want to have better transit access, better pedestrian circulation, better traffic circulation, you need to have a reconstructed interchange. This board has seen our West Shore Transportation Action Plan over the last few months. In our meetings with you and our presentations, we talked about, when we spoke to residents, their biggest concerns were congestion, traffic congestion, and pedestrian access. When the FDOT had their meeting on November 15th in West Shore, it was hard to find neighborhood opposition, local West Shore opposition to the reconstruction of the interchange. So on behalf of the West Shore Alliance, we ask you to forward your letters on to FDOT in support of the interchange being a regional priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina Costa.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
It's a pleasure to address you. My name is Christina Costa. This morning I represent Walk Bike Tampa, the nonprofit advocacy organization, as well as Pedal Power Promoters. I'm a founding member of our Vision Zero Coalition. Before I became a nationally recognized bicycle and pedestrian advocate, I was a bike commuter through the West Shore Business District, as my neighborhood was just south of Kennedy Boulevard and West Shore, and I was a student at Hillsborough Community College on Dale Mabry. Just going to give you a second to absorb that route and what it might look like for on foot or by bicycle. No, this was not 35 years ago, as you might guess. It was just 10 years ago. I chose to ride my bike to get the exercise and to relieve the stress. You might recall that something called the Great Recession was breathing down our necks. As a commuter through the West Shore Business District on my bicycle, I found that crossing the interstate at the few locations available to me was a real nail biter and among the worst and most dangerous spots that I had to traverse. There are very few north-south opportunities. So I'm here this morning to urge you to make the West Shore interchange the county's top priority. The boom in residential construction in the West Shore District speaks to the droves of people who want to live, work, play, and learn within the district. And passage of the All for Transportation referendum speaks to the citizens' desire for car-optional mobility. The Howard Franklin Bridge will get its new bicycle facility, and soon on the west side in Pinellas, there will be a robust, connected grid of separated space for all of the business and residential residents on that side. We should do likewise on the Hillsborough side. Every time we commit to anything that is walkable or bikeable, we are making our communities transit ready. If we don't have ways for people to not just comfortably, safely, but joyfully go to their transit stop, then whatever solutions we put in place won't work. So let's build that infrastructure first, and let's take the pressure off of the other areas that are so contentious. Let's move forward with the West Shore interchange, make it walk and bike friendly, add all that fluid movement, and support the citizens there first. That gives us more opportunity to study the 275 Grand Boulevard concept as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Joshua Frank.
Good morning, Board. It's good to see some new faces. I have 2 quick things I want to talk about this morning, and the first is, I'm really glad to be here speaking to you because I'm really only about 10 hours removed from having to rescue my fiance at the intersection of Adamo and Orient Road last night, who was T-boned by an on-duty sheriff's officer coming back to work at the Orient Road jail. And, for a living, I'm an urban designer. I live in Ybor City, if I didn't say that already. But, these are the sort of things that I fight to solve and what All for Transportation was meant to fix. And as I'm talking to officers and taking reports and filling out forms and insurance and all that headache that comes with it, I'm looking at the intersection differently. I see how it's designed. I see how it's poorly lit and dangerous, and how these things can happen in an area that hasn't had investment in a very long time. And then I pull up my phone as I'm contacting my relatives to let them know everything's okay, that Commissioner White has decided to sue and prevent All for Transportation from being passed. And so I almost threw my phone into the ditch because I was so upset that these are the types of problems we're supposed to be fixing. And I've chosen to dedicate my career to fix and advocate for, and for political reasons or for whatever reasons, we decide to have one person potentially throw a monkey wrench in that. So I just want you to think about the real implications as to what the actions of Commissioner White are taking right now. So that's the first bit. The second piece is I want to talk just very briefly about the survey you're going to hear the results about. And I'm sorry if I'm a little emotional this morning. I'm not normally upset about these sorts of things, but when it gets personal, it gets really touching. So really what I want to talk to you about in regards to the survey and why I was originally coming this morning is the survey is a very important piece of the process and by no means is invaluable, but keep it in perspective. I think the total amount of surveyed respondents was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 people. That's 0.3% of the Tri-County area and is by no way determinative in any sort of aspect. So please keep that in mind when you're looking at the results. And I know that was a new high record for this survey. And just think about that, 0.3%. So that's about like maybe 2 sections at Raymond James Stadium. So aside from that, I second the motion by the CAC and some of the others here to continue studying the boulevard concept is definitely not going away. So I think it'd be great to further study it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our last speaker is Lena Young-Green.
Good morning. Thank you one more time for another opportunity to come before you. Want to take a moment just to say thank you to all of you who represent your constituents and who spend your time and all your effort to represent us and represent our interests. I also want to let you know how proud we are to talk about several years ago when we started becoming very active with transportation issues. Some of your members who are on your podium today were behind the mic like we are. After we started becoming involved, we've had a lot of accomplishments, have done a lot of things. And I just want to let you know that that's only the beginning. I also want to echo what my president spoke about the survey and our area being considered for interstate boulevards. Often when I speak before you, I refer to the fact that we are today planning for my children, for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. And one of the things that you all are tasked with is looking into the future and trying to anticipate what's best for my great-great-grandchildren. And that's not an easy thing. But talking about boulevards, talking about interstates to boulevards, recognize the value of our area, recognize the value of our urban core, recognize the area that is becoming more and more important and more significant as our future generations change the way that they want to live, work, and play from what my generation did several years ago. So please continue to look at the boulevard. We'd like to see a transit area along that interstate area, much as other parts of the world have concluded that interstates do not solve congestions. We also want to continue to talk about our walk-bikeable communities and the safety of that in working with Vision Zero, and also want to ask that you continue to represent the interest of our communities. Thank you so much again for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Let me thank each and every one of you for coming out. That's the last speaker we had. We appreciate your input and your interest. Thank you very much. Excuse me. We're now moving to committee reports, online comments. Ms. Gina Torres. You don't look like Gina Torres.
Sorry, I'm not Gina. Gina has a bad case
Excuse
of
me, hold
laryngitis.
on, excuse me. Is this someone else?
Yep.
I'm sorry. We have one more speaker. Dara Lazarus.
Dana.
Oh, Dana.
Sorry for being late. I am just here to say hello to new people on the MPO. My name's Dana. I live at 33610 in Old Seminole Heights. And I'm an urban planning master's student. As far as what I hope to see the MPO put money towards in the county, lower income neighborhoods. I've been studying equity in urban planning, so if we could, start connecting streets in places that are usually underfunded, I would really encourage that. Also, as a young person, a millennial, really hope to see some investment in light rail, and I'm really excited about what's going to happen with HART, the bus service. Consistency is key. I'm willing to wait as long as I need to, as long as I know the bus is coming. In the past month, I've been left stranded at bus stops. So, what else? CSX tracks, please take that seriously, looking into how we can lease the land. Bus rapid transit, if we're going to do it, make it real, dedicated lane. Let's consolidate land use, stop spreading out beyond the urban service boundary. Infill, high density, these are all things that I'm learning about for sustainable growth and transit-oriented development, making public-private partnerships with small businesses that want to grow around transit stops. And again, a focus on equity, making sure that we have programs for the communities that actually exist around those transit stops to access those jobs, jobs training, making sure that transit goes to where people work. I think that about covers it, but I'll be back to more MPO meetings, so I'll see y'all soon. I'm also on the CAC, so my thoughts are let out there too. So anyways, thanks and good morning.
Thank you. Okay, we will revert back to committee reports and online comments. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Rich Clarendon, pinch hitting for Gina. So your committees met this last month and approved and forwarded for your approval the 2019 meeting schedule, which is part of your consent agenda, the amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program for HART's Section 5337 and 5339 funding, the MPO comments on the FDOT Strategic Intermodal System 2045 Cost Feasible Plan, with agreement that the top two priorities are the State Road 60 interchange at I-275 and the flyover from I-275 to I-4. They also approved the survey results from the It's Time Tampa Bay survey and recommendations. It's been noted in your speakers this morning that the CAC did discuss the boulevard conversion concept, suggesting that it was not clearly understood by the public and still warrants further study. The other committees asked for how the results would be used in developing the 2045 long-range transportation plan. They also received presentations on some other topics, including the health and all policies resolution. A lot of questions raised about how the indicators were going to be used in the prioritization process for the long-range transportation plan, and it was suggested that some additional indicators could be included to address topics such as better air quality, access to hospitals and by medical professionals, and trees as part of the urban tree canopy. So we're working to incorporate and address these concerns And this item will be coming back to you at a future meeting. There was also a report on the work being done in the South Shore area to reevaluate transit service there. A report on the mobility plan for the Heights mobility plan. Also, we're looking at multimodal level of service and how we evaluate that. A status report was received on that. The BPAC heard reports on the Gasparilla Children's Bike Rodeo, noise wall best practices, and it was noted that there is a street mural painting coming up on December 15th at Cleveland Elementary School, and we encourage everybody to participate. At the TMA leadership group, there were time was spent discussing possible restructuring options. Now that the TMA meetings would not be led by professional facilitators, topics included options for voting structure, asking staff to draft formal bylaws, and include a clarification of the roles and responsibilities, and to consider a slogan for the group. The It's Time Tampa Bay MetroQuest regional survey results were reviewed by the TMA leadership, and the Strategic Intermodal System Cost Feasible Plan for 2045 was presented, and the comments, the MPOs did share their comments and would be providing letters to the Florida DOT. Secretary Gwynn requested support for the West Shore I-275 interchange as the top regional priority. The TMA leadership group meets next on February 8th here in Hillsborough County. In terms of online comments, 3 Facebook posts were received. One from Nicole Perry, who urged future transportation dollars be spent on noise walls separating highways and neighborhoods, expanding the streetcar, more local bus service, and traffic calming. Implementation of Vision Zero, bus rapid transit, and not highway widening, asking for a no-build option to be included in the SCIS process. Lesam Ramos wrote to encourage fair distribution and transparency in the use of the transportation funds that benefit all citizens with options for both work and leisure trips. And then Doug Jessup shared his experience while in Paris and the removal of an expressway that improved the quality of life for residents and visitors with no notable effect on urban traffic. We've received 8 emails, one from Alex Jandrick, who says, let's keep it simple, stop destroying neighborhoods with congested highways, more lanes equals more traffic, build public transit now. Caitlin Ramsey wrote with concerns about traffic between US 41 and US 301 in South Hillsborough County. Staff shared information on what's in the Transportation Improvement Program in that area and invited her to participate in the county's South Shore Mobility Study. We received an email from Bob Fry following up from the TAC meeting, of which he's a member, about the committee's interests and opportunities for reviewing and providing meaningful technical input on studies and plans moving forward. We are meeting with him and scheduling a time to discuss this further. We received an email from Mike LaMarca, who is an avid cyclist and spoke to the need for better maintenance on bike lanes, specifically looking to improve faded markings, overgrowth, and debris on the state roadways. Mauricio Rosas asked T-BARTA for better access to their meetings by the transportation disadvantage, especially when the meetings are outside of the Hart area. He suggested videotaping or live streaming. It's our understanding that T-BARTA staff will be using live streaming, and also suggested submitting public comments electronically before their meetings. We heard from Connie G. Abate. A number of emails were exchanged with the City of Tampa staff on studies for speed management on Davis Islands. Jim Davison emailed asking about value capture analysis, use of Tampa's community investment tax funds on transit, and the referendum's effect on future scenario planning and traffic congestion. Myron Griffin emailed to ask for updates on the Green Artery project, and he will be invited to a meeting scheduled by FDOT in the city of Tampa. And last but not least, we received a late email from Brant Peterson, who's in favor of more multimodal planning and concludes the MPO should look towards the future, away from asphalt, and toward transformational transit projects that will benefit our regions for decades to come. Not having funding is no longer an excuse. Let's get building. Everyone will be watching. So that's our report.
Busy report. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir. We're moving to the consent agenda. We had 2 items on the consent agenda, committee reports and the 2019 MPO budget and committee meeting calendar. Is there any questions on the consent agenda? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Coyne, second by School Board Member Stewart. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We now move to the roll call vote for the TIP amendment approved by committees, that is Hart's FTA Section 5307, 5309-5337, and 5339 funding. Are there any questions? Any questions? I have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Mechanic,
Yes.
Gerardo, Cohen,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Lott, Miller,
Yes.
Mira,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. We now move into the action items for 2019 MPO board officers and committee representatives. Mr. Clark, before we get to that, Mr. Clark, Councilman Coyne wants a moment of personal privilege. You recognize, sir.
Thank you very much. I've had the honor of serving as vice chair of this organization as well as chair of the policy committee and a member of the TMA for a number of years now. And since I will be rolling off the MPO in a few months, I will not be doing that anymore after today. And I wanted to just make 2 brief comments. And the first is that I think that this TMA leadership group that we send 3 delegates to that meets regularly with elected officials from Pinellas and Pasco is a very, very important opportunity for Hillsborough County to hear what our regional partners have to say, but also to participate in the larger discussions. Commissioner Merman, Commissioner Kemp, and I have served on it for a number of years. There's now going to be 2 spots available, and I just want to encourage everyone to consider doing it. It is a little bit time-consuming, but I think it's going to be very important in the years ahead that the Hillsborough voices are heard in that group, and that we make our positions clear on a lot of the items that are going to be coming up. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to do that. And the second thing I just wanted to say is that there was an allusion made this morning to the lawsuit related to the All for Transportation referendum. And I just wanted to say for myself that I'm very, very disappointed that the will of the voters of Hillsborough County could in some way be infringed by this effort. I think it's very, very important that we move forward with this funding that people overwhelmingly supported. We have so many needs. We have so many things over the years that we have prioritized on this board. And the only opportunity we're going to have, particularly to make safety improvements and to improve congestion issues, is with this money. And I hope that everyone will do everything in their power to fight to make sure that this revenue stream exists for us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyne. Let me thank you for your service, sir, not only for the city of Tampa, but Hillsborough County, because this is a Hillsborough County MPO. I know you're rotating off in March, but again, we want to thank you. You've been an excellent vice chair, especially when I've been out, especially recently with my back surgery. So again, thank you very much, and you will be missed.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Good morning, board members. Cameron Clark, I'm MPO attorney.
going to ask for nominations for MPO chair and vice chair, and then what I'll do is we'll go through your committee appointments. Our bylaws require MPO action for committee appointment, but what I'd suggest is once we go through each of the committee appointments, just have one vote at the end to confirm the appointments. So for chair and vice chair, I'll ask for nominations. I'll keep asking for them until I don't get any more, and then I'll ask for votes based on the order of nomination. So are there any nominations for MPO chair?
I'll nominate Commissioner Miller.
Commissioner Miller is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Commissioner Miller, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your vote of confidence. Thank you.
Next is the office of MPO Vice Chair. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Councilman Luis Vieira.
Okay, Councilman Vieira is nominated. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Commissioner Pat Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp is nominated. Are there any other nominations? All right. May I see, and since we don't have buttons in this room, may I see a show of hands in favor of Councilman Vieira for MPO Vice Chair? I see 7 hands. Okay, and may I see hands voting for Commissioner Kemp? I see 8 hands. To confirm, so Commissioner Kemp is Vice Chair. Congratulations, Commissioner. Now, for Policy Committee, the bylaws don't specify an exact number. I usually recommend an odd number because it's easier to achieve a quorum with an odd number. We presently use 5 members and 2 alternates. Current members are Councilman Cohen, Commissioner Kemp, Councilman Maniscalco, Commissioner Merman, and Director Wagoner. Obviously, Commissioner Merman would need to be replaced because she's only MPO alternate right now. And Councilman Cohen, did you say you no longer wish to serve on that committee right now? Correct. Okay. So we have 3 current members who can, of course, be reappointed, which are Commissioner Kemp, Councilman Maniscalco, and Director Wagoner. So what's the board's pleasure?
You all 3 want to be reappointed? Yes.
Fine.
All right. Do we have then we need 2 slots then to fill since Councilman Cohen and Commissioner Merman weren't going to be serving again. I need 2 more spots for Policy Committee. Okay.
Okay, we have Commissioner Smith's volunteered.
Okay.
Need 1 more.
I was serving as the alternate, so I'll step into the role.
Okay. And then we need 2 alternates. Right now we have Director Anderson and we have Board Member Stewart, so we would need another alternate for Board Member Stewart. Commissioner Overman?
Commissioner Overman volunteers.
Okay, and now we need 3 members for the TMA Leadership Group. Currently are Councilman Cohen, Commissioner Kemp, and Commissioner Merman, so we need 2 replacements for regular members.
Commissioner Overman has volunteered. We need 1 more.
And just for clarification, how often does this board meet?
I believe it's every other month. Is that correct, Beth?
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 5 times a year.
It's not bad.
It does rotate geographically where you get to go.
Yes, it's not exactly always right in your neighborhood.
East Coast.
Yeah.
So I have Commissioner Overman, Commissioner Kemp, and Councilman Vieira as TMA Leadership Group. The 2 alternates presently are Director Anderson and Director Lapano.
Let me comment on that. It's my understanding that changing the rules, that only elected officials can be members of the TMA. Is that correct?
That decision has not yet been made. It was discussed at the TMA Leadership Group meeting, but there has not been any decision on that.
So I suggest that only elected officials perhaps serve as alternates to the TMA in case that rule is made.
Board members, we could always, if the leadership group goes that direction, we could always make that change at that time. They may not do it, so it's at the board's discretion.
Why don't we just leave it, if they don't mind, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Pownell stay there, and if they change the rules, and we come back and rectify it.
Okay. And we have 3 more appointments. The first is the Transportation Disabled Coordinating Board Chair, currently Councilman Vieira.
I'd be honored to continue to serve if I may.
All right. And then you have Liberal Roadways Chair is currently Planning Commissioner Green.
Okay.
Okay. And then finally, per our bylaws, the MPOEC representative for this board, the MPO Advisory Council representative, is the chair. However, the state statute requires us to appoint an alternate to the chair. Currently, it's Director Anderson.
We can continue. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I'll recite very quickly. Councilman Vieira, Transportation Disadvantaged Coordinating Board Chair. Liberal Roadways Committee Chair is Commissioner Green. MPOEC alternate is Director Anderson. TMA Leadership Group, I have Commissioner Overman, Commissioner Kemp, Councilman Vieira. For alternates, I have Director Anderson and Director Lopano. And for Policy Committee, I have, let's see, Board Member Stewart, I have Commissioner Kemp, Councilman Maniscalco, Commissioner Smith, Director Wagoner, and the alternates are Commissioner Overman and Director Anderson. May I just ask for a vote to confirm the appointments?
There motion to confirm.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Cohen, second by Ms. Stewart. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Thank you, sir. Congratulations to everyone, including myself. Okay. Unified Planning Work Program Amendment. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning. My name is Alice Ye. I'm one of the MPO staff members. So the item you have before you today is the fiscal year 2019 Unified Planning Work Program Amendment. I know you see this slide a lot, but we have some new commissioners. This document, the Unified Planning Work Program, is effective, it's 2 fiscal years at a time. So the current document is effective July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2020, sorry. It outlines all our major planning tasks and documents our federal and state funding, so very important for compliance. Coordinates all the federally funded planning tasks performed by the MPO, HART, DOT. The purpose of today's amendments, we do periodically amendments after we adopt a document, and I have 4 items, and the first 3 is administrative updates to this document. So annually, we receive our Federal Transit Administration funding, and we have to update that agreement annually and put all the required certifications and searches in place, so that's being done. We also, at the end of fiscal year, true up what was remaining last year and, see what's moving forward, and also we are given a new allocation every year, which comes a little bit later, so we have to make sure that matches what the agreement is telling us. And finally, a while ago, we received a grant from the American Public Health Association, and we're just kind of showing what we have remaining in our budget for that. So I did put in your packets this chart to show you, because it's a little hard to see on the screen where the changes are, and they're pretty minor. So from the previous year, where you see green is where we had a little bit increase from the last time we showed you this document. So in task 1, you'll see that there's $1,035 remaining. In task 4, it's red, so there's $65 remaining in that task. In task 6, the regional and local coordination task, there's $32 remaining. That's just what moved over from last year and we're using this year. The new FTA grant agreement, that's the next column over, is the agreement we're signing today. And we had made an estimation of what it was, and it was just about $16,000 more, so we're just turning that up to show it correctly in our budget. Finally, the American Public Health Association grant I talked about, that's our healthiest cities you've been hearing about. That's just administratively updating that budget amount. So we do this periodically. The other kind of important part about this document is we need to amend the document every time we have a change in budget, or bottom line, or we have a change in the tasks of our work program. So that's what this part is about. In July of last year, this board supported the planned Hillsborough strategic plan. There was a resolution in July 2018. And Plan Hillsborough is the MPO on the Planning Commission, the River Board. And you probably know this better than me, but we coordinate land use and transportation, Hillsborough River planning, and for the 4 local governments. And MPO staff actually supports Plan Hillsborough staff and vice versa. We have kind of integrated some of the strategic plan initiatives into our work program. So let me recap our work program tasks very quickly. There are 6 of them. Task 1 is the transportation management planning task, so all the administrative and compliance things happen. Task 2 is the bulk of our planning work, our system and corridor planning. Task 3, long-range transportation plan and data collection. Task 4 is where we work in the transportation improvement program, the short-term 5-year program. And Task 5, the public participation. Task 6, the local regional coordination planning. So we took some of the strategic plan policies and we thought, how can we integrate that into our work program? So there are several areas. Task 2 is the system and corridor planning task that I just mentioned. And there's a section called congestion management, crash mitigation planning, and intelligent transportation systems. So these three, apologize, I had to put the exact text in for you because it's a little hard to find in the document, but we're already evaluating the effectiveness of this program, but we wanted to take a look at using before and after strategies and crash modification factors. We want to put that in our plan that as part of our methodology for working on this. We also want to continue to work with local governments to develop tools and policy modifications, things like reduction of sidewalk waivers in urban and suburban areas for access management, and looking at things in a context-sensitive design mode. Finally, you've been hearing a lot about our Vision Zero effort. We want to seek grants for this to help it become a freestanding initiative in the community. So that's one part of Task 2. Another section of Task 2 is corridor and sub-area and environmental studies. We have always worked with local governments, but we want to make sure that we highlight, we're going to work on the Hillsborough County's corridor preservation policies. That's an important part of Hillsborough County's planning. And also we want to signal our alignment with the strategic plan and looking to improve the grid system. So whether that's existing grid system, shoring that up, improving connectivity, or creating grid systems in new growth areas. This is all highlighted in the plan that's on the website. It was a very large document, so we sent you the link instead. Task 3, as I mentioned, is our long-range transportation task and data collection task. We're wanting to emphasize that we want to look at innovative approaches, and we want to look at, different value capture mechanisms, public-private partnerships, special districts to forward our transportation improvement goals. We want to work with big data as a, very hot topic right now. We recognize that. We want to look at assembling publicly available data sources and develop a portal that's not just for us, but for professionals, researchers, citizens, someplace where everyone can access the data we're collecting. Finally, Task 5 is a really important task, our public participation task, and we already have large mailing lists and we have an inventory, but we wanted to make sure that in that inventory we included our non-discrimination plan and include that as a part of our notification email system. And finally, we want to increase public participation, so we want to explore remote meeting and webcasting and that to help people participate easier in meetings, save time and money to come to meetings. And that, in a nutshell, is what we are changing this time. We have some administrative amendments and a change to the work program, and the action today is to ask you to approve the plan amendment and move it forward to the Department of Transportation for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Ye.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I actually have a question.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
On the, it's either the system corridor planning or the transportation improvement planning, I don't recall. That one right there.
Right.
On Task 2, how is that measured and how is that reported? We have significant crash challenges and corridor challenges, and I was just curious about how that's actually reported to the MPO.
How the crash data is reported? Or?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we actually receive our crash data from the Department of Transportation, and then we utilize that.
But I mean, in terms of measuring its effectiveness
the
when we
before
make
and
those
after.
changes. Yeah.
That's, Ms. Alden can probably speak a little better to that, but yeah.
We are providing quarterly updates on the progress of the Vision Zero initiative that track our crash trends over time. And we will be supplementing that by looking at the effectiveness of individual improvement projects using the crash modification factor tools that are available from Federal Highway.
Okay.
So you'll see that in quarterly updates.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
We need a motion to.
Yeah, that's what I asked. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve?
A motion by Councilman
I'll second.
Maniscalco, second by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time, Tampa Bay survey results and recommendation. Lisa Silva and Jim Meyer.
Good morning, Lisa Silva, MPO staff. I had the honor of being the project manager for this huge public outreach to get the in a regional approach. In the interest of that, we have had and we love public comment. We had a lot of it today. You're going to get the snapshot, very quick version today. And I want to remind you that the entire detailed summary report and the full PowerPoint are on our Plan Hillsborough website and the It's Time Tampa Bay website. And I'm going to have our consultant who helped us with this initiative provide the overview.
Good morning. My name is Jim Meyer with AECOM, and a pleasure to be here today to share with you what we felt were some incredible survey results. This was, as previously mentioned, a record-setting event. If I had to give you kind of a 10-second overview of where we ended up with this survey, we had extensive outreach by all 3 counties. Hillsborough staff was amazing. Incredible social media campaign that was very successful. If you had to boil it down to a couple points, people told us that they want us to address traffic jams and they want alternatives to driving. They also wanted to look at minimizing outward growth and reinvest in neighborhoods. So how did we get here today? There's a lot of effort that went into this process starting about a year ago, looking at different population employment projections. There were computer model runs of these scenarios that were used as input into the MetroQuest survey. And we developed a working group back in January that met 5 or 6 times to go through and refine and test the survey. So a lot of effort went into this process. So where we're at now is we have the survey results. We've come up with some guidance looking at that will help the 3 MPOs move forward to develop a hybrid scenario. And next year there will be some additional outreach and then eventually adoption of the LRTP coming up next fall. As I mentioned, with the 10,000 surveys that we had, that's part of the process, having a good survey. The other piece is to get the word out there, and Hillsborough staff was incredible in this process. We had a website, we had videos, numerous presentations. I want to say there were over 60, I believe, going out to various stakeholder meetings. Social media was really good. And also want to point out the last bullet point there. Every household in Hillsborough County and every business received information about participating in the survey through a trim notice that went, the notice that was showing up on the screen there that went out as well. Just real quickly on the social media, we're seeing a lot more people take surveys on their phones and on tablets. So MetroQuest is a great way to get out there. About a third of the surveys that were completed actually came through social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So just a great outreach effort. We also made the online survey available in a paper format. We created a PowerPoint presentation that was also translated into Spanish, which is what you're seeing up there. And some of the Hillsborough staff went out and actually conducted meetings where if people weren't comfortable taking it online, they could do that in paper format, and those survey results were then added into all of the results. So I'll quickly run through some of those. As Lisa mentioned, you do have the full data set there that you can look at. I want to start out again just mentioning that MetroQuest is a self-select survey. So it's not intended to be a statistically valid survey. However, as we go through the process, we did an extensive effort to make sure that we are reaching various demographic demographic groups, making sure we had good geographic coverage. We looked at zip code coverage. And as part of that social media outreach, we actually retargeted some of our Facebook to make sure that we were hitting underperforming areas. And looking at this, we're very comfortable that the results are valid. We spent a lot of time actually with MetroQuest staff going through it, and very comfortable with that we have a great data set here. The survey did run for 2 months. We had close to 10,000 surveys, close to 10,000 comments. Again, just incredible participation. This slide, just to show you, typically when we do these surveys, they tend to flatten out and kind of bump up and stuff. You can see on this graphic that this was strong all the way from start to finish. The red column on the left is represents the percentage of population for the 3 counties. The purple column represents the survey response. So you can see we had a little higher participation from Hillsborough and slightly under on Pinellas and Pasco, but still very good numbers in terms of the surveys. And here you can see we had 4,000 surveys for Hillsborough alone. Good coverage, though, throughout the 3-county area. Just quickly to talk on some of the demographics. So on the slide there, the orange column represents Hillsborough. The other columns, blue is Pinellas, green Pasco, and red were those who did not provide a zip code. The purple line is the average. We did see that the results tended to represent a little bit higher income level. Those higher columns there towards the middle of the chart represent income over $55,000 annual income there. So we did do a breakdown looking at demographics, and Hillsborough County, we're approaching about 30% responses by survey or by minorities, which in the beginning we did some retargeting and saw those numbers increase over time. So some really great effort there by staff to come up with that, to reach those results. We had 7 priorities that people could select from. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of broke this into tiers. We saw that 75% of respondents identified traffic jams and alternatives to driving as a priority. The second tier, open and green space, shorter commutes, were about 62 to 64%. And a couple notes to mention, Pinellas County rated alternatives to driving slightly higher than traffic jams, and storm vulnerability for Pinellas was rated significantly higher than the other counties. Pasco also rated shorter commutes a little bit higher there. So just to kind of run through the results quickly here, we did have 3 scenarios, new technologies, which focused more on driverless cars, bus rapid transit, and some other targeted improvements. Really kind of had kind of a neutral opinion there. The 4 and 5 on the side represent 4 or 5 stars or a higher ranking. And so you can kind of see that this one was pretty even. The expressway lanes, adding tolled lanes, a 275 Boulevard concept, did receive mostly 1 and 2 stars. And the transit-focused scenario overwhelmingly had about 3/4 of survey respondents who favored this concept. So the next screen of the survey, we asked people to rate 20 different elements, and I'm not going to go through this this graphic in detail, but what I want to point out is there were 4 categories that you can see at the bottom: roadway elements, transit, community, and funding. And so on the left, and moving to the right, are on the left side you have the elements that scored the highest, with that being rail, state and local rail. The next 4 boxes are all community elements that scored really high: preserving neighborhoods, walk and bike focus, more efficient land use. And on the other extreme, on the right there, you have expanded growth areas being the least favorable. So just real quickly to kind of show you the elements, the columns here, if you see the darker purple on the right, that represents individuals who rated these concepts as 4 or 5 stars. We saw that improvements such as targeted interchange, ramp improvements, advanced technology, all receiving pretty high scores. Some of the roadway improvements, completing the loop and the boulevard, scored a little bit lower. We also took a look to see comparison between the counties, and so if there's a red arrow, that means that that county rated that particular element a little lower. A green one, it rated higher. So what we saw, generally speaking, Pasco tended to rate some of the roadway improvements higher. Pinellas tended to rate some of those the same or even lower. The The scale that you see here is the same for what you just saw on the roadway element. So what we're showing on the transit is 80% plus rated rail very high, and you can see the average score at the bottom there. BRT came in over 50%, water ferry also very high. Expanded ride sharing was fairly neutral. Not a lot of difference between the counties. Pasco tended to be a little less in favor of water ferry and expanded ride sharing. So the community elements, all rated again as we saw at the beginning, 70 around 65, 70%. So a lot of focus in on looking at land use and how that impacts that. 55% said they did not favor expanded growth areas. We did see a little bit of difference where Pasco was a little more open to expanded growth areas, so not surprising. Pinellas tended to be a little higher on preserving neighborhoods and walking and biking. Funding tended to be, if looking at taxes and fees for rail, came in at about 59% with approval. Special district fees about 50%, and the other ones were tended to be around 40% on the 1 or 2 stars. So again, I think the big item here, Pasco tended to favor more roadway-focused improvements, and Pinellas supported a little bit higher on the rail improvements. So I think you've seen some of the numbers. You may have seen this through the process, and I want to wrap up here in about a minute or two. So, you know, the big takeaways, again, just looking at the scoring, a lot of on the growth, preserving neighborhoods, better downtowns, more efficient land use. And then we've talked about some of the concepts that receive some lower scores. Again, we talked about this quite a bit going through it, so you can kind of, I'm not going to repeat this slide here. I did want to show you that we had 4,000 Hillsborough surveys. So that by itself is a really nice number of surveys if you were just doing this by your, you know, for your county. So what that allowed us to do was really break down some additional data. And so we looked at the scenarios and we said, okay, who actually rated different scenarios higher? And for the purpose of today, I'm not going to go through these, but I wanted to just kind of highlight that, you know, we broke down all of these additional elements, and we broke it down by sub areas within the county, who was commuting between Pinellas and Hillsborough, and different commute trips, demographics, income levels. So a lot of information is available to county staff that will be useful in really moving forward with the LRTP as they develop that. So to wrap it up, we are moving, as I showed with the schedule, to developing the hybrid scenario. And if you kind of take away the key themes of this survey, a lot of this is really to encourage these type of elements be incorporated into the comprehensive planning efforts that go on. So reinvesting in neighborhoods, strengthening downtowns, and really minimizing that outward growth. There are a number of transportation elements. Rail is something that should be considered based upon the survey results, Brightline, streetcar, but also looking at express bus, BRT, and making those important connections as well. Elevated lanes were something that were commented on and were mentioned as something that could help improve congestion. So there are possible strategies in the downtown Tampa interchange area. Pasco has talked about some elevated interchange, maybe at 54 and 41. And people mentioned that in comments and through the survey that tolls should be used for congestion management and not as a revenue source. Just to wrap up, focusing in on bottlenecks, walking and biking. I think we talked about, or 275 Boulevard conversion has been mentioned. Currently, the survey, the numbers don't support that, but could be something that is looked at. And advanced technology is something we know that's coming, but the survey demonstrated some interest in it, but really educating people and continuing to demonstrate the benefits as we go on is something that's important. So as Lisa mentioned, there is a more detailed report available. The presentation's available, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Commissioner Martin?
What?
Thank you.
Mr. Kemp, you recognize.
I'm used to her sitting here, right?
That was a big boo-boo, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So, did you say there's 10,000 surveys done in all?
Yes, we had just under 10,000. It was the exact number was 9,575, I believe.
And so, and how many were done from Hillsborough?
It was just over 4,000.
Because I just, and this is, but of the, you know, if you equal population of Pinellas and Pasco put together, you know, it equals Hillsborough's population. So that wouldn't be really reflective, for me, enough of Hillsborough in terms of the whole regional voice for any of this. But I think it's interesting to see some of the very distinct and different takes on things by counties. I would really like to have ours broken out into so I can just see what Hillsborough County thought, because really that's my charge, and I like to understand that better, and I'm not surprised that it's so distinctly different. And I do think that there's a certain unfairness in terms of judging something like the Boulevard project in light of this, when it's weighted to the other counties that have like no interest. I mean, what I often hear from, in a regional basis, from elected representatives that are on these boards from Pasco and Pinellas and other regions around is, I get the sense that, you know, Hillsborough County is good to flatten and put in toll roads, you know, for easy passage. That's what, you know, it's not as if there's a sense of caring about how that's done here or how that is. So I'd be really interested in seeing it broke out. I think it's really interesting, a lot of the things. I don't necessarily take, you know, I think it's interesting tool and interesting information, but it's not as valuable to me if it's not broken out by county.
Yeah, you want to comment on that?
Just briefly, just a point of clarification. There was a slice of the survey respondents who did not provide their zip code. And so when we look at the people who did provide their zip code, the percent of folks who are from Hillsborough County was actually overrepresented in the survey.
I see.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you for your presentation. It's actually the second time I've seen it, so I've had time to think about some of those observations. To the point of our commenters earlier, and the fact, on full disclosure, I live in the middle of the county, alongside of where the Boulevard project, and was one of the first organizations that sponsored bringing that idea forward, and asking all of us to take a look at how that might impact our community. The reason I did is because it actually would be a project that would increase walkability. It would increase economic development. It would increase connectivity in neighborhoods. But it's not understood that way. The first time I mentioned it to someone, everybody went, "What?" Especially the folks that didn't live here, that used 275 to get to the work centers in the downtown area as well as West Shore. So to the point that was made of our commenters earlier in the public comment, it is very obvious that something like that could find itself with an unaware of the consequence response. So, which is why the CAC recommended revisiting that issue, and why I think all of us should consider that as a consequence of it being an area that it does impact Hillsborough much more than it does our regional area. So I would like to reinforce that recommendation as to revisit the response just in Hillsborough as best we can, to see if it would come up with a different type of weighting, but more importantly, to make sure that we keep it on our agenda going forward, even though the results seem to question whether or not there's value to that exercise.
Yeah, and I would add on that point, I think one comment just overall, the survey is one tool of many that should be, is a good source. In looking at the breakout of the boulevard, we did look at some of that difference, and there is some information in the overall report, but Hillsborough County obviously has a slightly higher approval of that type of scenario. So.
Jim, could you
Otherwise,
show
I
that
wanted to say
slide?
it's awesome for report.
So there is another slide in the actual. Wait a second. Oh, sorry. This one, Beth, is that?
And then by county, it's one below.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Shows how the two counties.
We do have one that is broken down county by county for each of those individual elements, and we may not have it here today, but be happy to bring it back to the board members if you'd like to see that.
Okay. School Board Member Stewart, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, I appreciate the work that has been done both by the consultant and MPO staff, but I think we just need to be reminded that there was a lot of distractions that were going on when this survey happened. All for Transportation was running a referendum, the school district was running a referendum, and the last thing that I think a lot of people wanted to talk about was, you want me to do another survey about transportation, unfortunately. I know that the district shied away from anything that had to do with this because we didn't want to cloud the subject of our own referendum. So we had originally offered to run this to all of our 212,000 families, and I think that would have made a significant impact on the results that you got, but we did not do that. So this is one tool. I know that's been said, and I agree with Commissioner Oberman. We have to be careful to not just use this one tool as we make decisions going forward. Our results obviously are different than the other counties, but 4,000 people responding to a survey that's supposed to represent the entire county is really pretty dismal.
Councilman Corning, you recognize.
Thank you. I think that the work of I want in no way want to in any way criticize the work of the survey, because obviously the survey was done well and the report is very easy to understand. But I think we have to take the results with a grain of salt for a couple of reasons. First of all, just judging from talking to people in the community, people really have very different levels of knowledge about transportation options generally. And it's very difficult, I think, for people to evaluate some of these concepts when taking a survey without a lot of additional education and information before they weigh in on it. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is that it seems to me from looking at it that, like many other things in our society today, there really is no consensus in the community at all for a definitive way forward. Instead, you see a lot of different people looking in a lot of different directions, and I think it just underscores the need for more education, for more sort of an expansion of the discussion, so that when people are asked these questions, they have a little bit more context to answer them in. If I were asked some of these things without having sat here for the last 8 years, I have no idea what my answers would be, and it would probably depend a lot on my individual commuting route and things that are specific to my life that might not be applicable to the general population. So I just wanted to sort of agree with everyone that while these things are helpful, they should be treated with some grain of salt, because without the additional education, I don't know if people really know what they're answering.
Majorado.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And I may be echoing a bit of what School Board Member Stewart and Councilman Cohen just shared. As I listened to the presentation and I heard the number one issue was traffic jams, what was going through my mind over the last year of sitting on this board is what we continually hear about are public safety and crash mitigation issues. We hear about South County growth, and one of the notations I made was you hit a back to school bash, but I was thinking specifically about getting our students safely from point A to point B. And so is there any way that we could have some additional data, I felt it was substantively lacking some of those key concerns that at every meeting are coming before this body and that the public is coming to really express great concerns about.
school transportation issues, and again, about crash mitigation and about real public safety issues. And I didn't see that, and it might have fallen under the umbrella of traffic jams, but beyond congestion, I'm concerned about the public safety aspect.
And I would add that I think some of the comments that came through on congestion related to safety and crashes and that type of thing. But no, certainly with this being a regional survey, trying to keep it the high level, and you know, I agree with everything that's being said. You know, again, it's one tool. You know, the priorities of people saying traffic jams and alternatives to driving, I think, is something that is fairly easy for people to understand, and those comments clearly rose to the top that people want to address those issues, which goes to almost everything this board has been talking about today. So,
Mr. Green, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to echo some of the comments that have been mentioned also. But first, let me thank you for both the staff and AECOM for conducting this survey. But I can't relay exactly some of the concerns that were expressed from the Planning Commission, but there were some at last month's meeting. But I noticed also there was not in the committee reports the Livable Roadways Committee's recommendations from last week's meeting. And I'm not sure if that, it said there was a verbal report, but I don't know that the concerns of the Livable Roadways Committee were expressed in this, but there were some.
Given our meeting was after production of the MPO packet, they were given verbally this morning, and I did hear Rich give the specific things like the health and all policy comments were there. They'll go into the report because I did email them to Gina, so they just didn't get produced for mail out.
Okay, thank you. But like some of the members of the community expressed earlier also, I personally had some concerns about the pairing of the scenarios in the study as well. And like others have mentioned, I'm not sure if that you know, ferry service or a boulevard in Tampa really registers a whole lot with folks in Pasco County. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, recognize.
On the survey, and going to what Councilman Cohen addressed, the survey, most importantly to me, is a qualitative survey. It was not backed by any kind of analysis of movement of people, effects on transportation, and what would be most effective. So, you know, this is kind of an opinion poll in my mind of what everybody might like to see, but it doesn't really tell you what we need. So a lot of that will come out when we start looking at some of these scenarios that have been suggested, but I would say that's another reason to take it with a grain of salt, a large grain of salt, in my opinion, because of that. The analysis of the movement of people and goods will tell you a great deal about what we need and how we can get there. So I look forward to that kind of work being done in the future.
Councilman Vieira, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's a lot of things we can glean from this survey, but there's a survey, quote unquote, that I look at that says that we want robust investments in transportation right here, right now, whether or not it's first tier, second tier, third tier, whatever it may be. And that's obviously the All for Transportation initiative that passed. And I think that the overall message, I think, from this survey is that our people, regardless of where they come from, want elected officials to make robust investments in transportation right here, right now. Last night, school board member Stewart and I did a town hall over off East Bougainvillea in the North Tampa area after about 30 days ago, where the 5 young school children were hit and injured along with their 2 parents on their way to school. I think it was 4 of the children with their parents were actually there last night. Very compelling, very, very compelling. And their main message of the people there was that we want help right here, right now. And these are people for whom transportation is not a luxury, it's a necessity, so that they can go to USF, to the hospital, to a fast food place and earn $9 an hour and have to spend, half of their first 2 hours of work on transportation. And this is something that all of the parts, I think, of our county and city support. You take a look at my district, which includes not only this section, but New Tampa, which is historically more of a quote-unquote conservative area, the suburbs. In New Tampa, all for transportation passed with almost 60%. Hunters Green, Tampa Palms, Corey Lake Isles, that blows your mind. That really does. So I think that the main thing we can glean from this is that our people, whether or not they come from, regardless of what part they come from in the county, want investments right here, right now in transportation. And I think that's something that we're doing with vigor, apparently. So, there. Thank you.
Any further comments? Let me offer a suggestion. It's quite apparent that you want more. From this study, you want more of what's happening in Hillsborough County. Let me offer a suggestion that we do not vote on this today, that we refer this to the policy committee, and that our staff maybe send out an email to you all asking what it is that you would like to see more of, and get that to our staffs, and then we refer that to the policy committee, and hopefully be able to bring something back at our January meeting. Is there an objection to that? Any objection? Without objection?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
MPO comments on strategic intermodal system 245 coast feasible plan. Good morning. Still morning.
All right, sorry about that. Good morning, Sarah McKinley, MPO staff. This morning I'm going to go over the Strategic Intermodal System Cost Feasible Plan for the year 2045. The Strategic Intermodal System, that is the sort of highest priority roads. These are the roads of regional significance for moving goods and people. FDOT prioritizes these projects, and then the MPOs include those projects in the long-range transportation plan updates. All right. As far as the projects this year, this is sort of a regional presentation, so I'm going to go through the projects for both Pinellas, Hillsborough, and also Pasco counties. As far as Pinellas County, the projects include the 3 additional interchanges on US 19. This is sort of the northern portion to complete that limited access project. Also, some lane continuity on I-275, the Gandy Bridge replacement for PD&E, as well as the Gateway Express to connect Roosevelt Boulevard. As far as Hillsborough County, there are the I-275 Innovation Corridor projects. Those are mainly the intersection improvements between MLK and Bierce. There's also the interchanges at the Sierra 60 Memorial, the West Shore interchange that we've talked a lot about today, as well as the I-275 to I-4 flyover. Again, the interchanges along I-275, I-4 through the county, as well as I-75 from Gibsonton Drive and Big Bend. This also includes the managed lanes along I-75. This is all throughout Hillsborough County, as well as I-4 from the Selman Connector to Polk County. There are 2 road widenings that were included. This is State Road 60, the eastern portion of the county from Dover Road to the Polk County line, as well as US 41 at Pendola Point and Causeway. There is also, again, the Gandy Bridge PD&E that was included for the Hillsborough portion. As far as Pasco goes, there's 2 intersection improvements, one at US 41 and 54, and then 54 in the Collier Parkway. There's the interchange enhancements at I-75 and State Road 56. Also, again, the addition of managed lanes on I-75 from the Hillsborough County line to Hernando County, as well as the PD&E at the Turnpike from Van Dyke to State Road 52. As far as the comments from each of the MPOs, for Pinellas, for the Klosterman interchange at US 19, they identified this to either be modified or removed from the plan. For Gandy Boulevard at Brighton Bay Interchange, this was not included in the plan. This is a project that they would like prioritized into the plan. The two additional interchanges on US 19 at Alderman and Tarpon, again, they've asked that these either be modified or removed from the plan. The Gateway Express at Roosevelt and also the Gandy Bridge reconstruction, they've asked that both of these projects be advanced. As far as the Hillsborough County comments, for the interchanges, we have prioritized the State Road 60 West Shore interchange as the top priority. We also asked that I-75 at Gibsonton and at Big Bend, that those interchange enhancements be advanced as well. For State Road 60 widening, this again is that far east portion to the Polk County line. We've asked for clarification on why this should be widened at this time. We feel that there are higher priorities before this should happen, as well as the US 41 at Pendola Point and Causeway. This is just sort of a note that it is constrained in the Hillsborough County comp plan, and so the FDOT would have to work with Hillsborough County to update the comp plan to allow for this project to move forward. There's also some comments that we had regarding transit, that SIS funding should be available for transit in the SIS right-of-way, as well as adding the CSX line through Pasco County to the SIS network. So we're asking that you prioritize these comments in the letter that we've moved forward. Through our committee comments at the TAC, we did get a comment about including the I-275 to I-4 flyover. We felt that because the board has not seen the SEIS results of the downtown interchange, that we should leave that comment out for now and proceed with these comments. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? Secretary Gwynn, are you involved with this? I see your name on here.
Morning. We, actually, what we'll be doing is preparing a response, and so that letter will be coming soon. I can, if you want, tell you a little bit about what the letter is going to say, or we can talk about it after you get the letter, so that's really up to you.
Commissioner Kemp, you're up now.
I just have,
Talk about the letter now.
right, the letter like we had yesterday at the HARP board meeting.
No, talking about, we'll provide a formal response to the comments on the 2045 SIS plan.
Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah, and it'll be spelled out. I think it's good news in there. We got some things that are going to move this all forward, but we just need to get it in writing, get it back, and then we can see if that meets what you're looking for.
Okay. Here's Bill.
There are two proposed letters in the packet.
I can tell you that the Big Bend project, we've worked with the county, and we've got that moved forward. We're going to do some reimbursement funding, and so that's going to be going design build in a couple years. So that's going forward. We got some plans for Gibson we're still working out, so I think it's all good news, and we'll get that in the letter for you.
Okay, I will see the
So
objection.
that's what the first letter is about, the second letter.
Mr. Green, do you have something?
I was going to make a motion to, if we were done.
Do we need, I don't think we need a motion concerning the letter.
Okay.
I think it's agreed upon that we'll wait until we get the letter from you.
We would not be getting a response.
Yeah.
Actually, why don't you say, just say that.
Sorry. So we would like the board's approval for sending the letter to Secretary Gwynn. The draft letter is in your agenda packet. It reflects these comments that you've just seen here. There is also a second proposed letter which speaks just to support for funding the West Shore interchange the State Route 60 I-275 interchange in an earlier year. That was discussed at the TMA leadership group with support for identifying funding for that as a top regional priority. And so we've prepared that draft as well for your consideration. And so we'd like to get the direction from the board today about both of those letters.
Move approval.
Well, Mr. Green, I think Mr. Green was going to make a motion, so I'm going to go back to him to do that. No respect.
No, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, move for deferral on the first letter, but the second letter, Can we move to, can we go forward with that one?
Both of them, yes. The same motion?
No, I think he's trying to do it separately.
I want to separate them.
You want to separate them?
Yes. Is that possible?
Well, you can make a motion.
If you'd like, Secretary Goin can go through his presentation as well. It does.
Yeah, I think in the presentation I'll be doing next for the Tampa Bay, next update, I have a lot of information in there about the West Shore interchange that maybe we can give you a little more of what we're asking for, if that's okay.
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 On
So
the
you're
State
gonna
Road 60
do the Tampa Bay Next update. So why don't we temporarily pass this issue, hear what you have to say with have the Tampa Bay Next, and then come back to this, and maybe we'll feel more comfortable of what we want to do, of either separating them, put them together, or not doing anything with them at all.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I have a question.
Commissioner Overman?
Question. So the first letter from our board is comments on the feasibility study that we just did. And that is what's been proposed is to defer approving these comments to?
Well, what we said was, the secretary said that his next presentation, which is the status report of Tampa Bay Next, we would have that report, have him make his presentation now, and then come back to the MPO comments and make a decision on what we want to do with those letters.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. Secretary, you reckon? Commissioner
I'm
Kim?
sorry, did you say you want to take the vote first for temporarily?
That's not what I
Okay,
said.
okay, thank you. Okay,
Both at
thank
the
you.
same time.
Commissioner,
That is.
the secretary, you recognize.
All right, thank you very much. This is the quarterly Tampa Bay Next update for the new board members. I know this is your first briefing that you'll see. I'd be very glad to sit down, our staff, with you if you'd like to go over some of the previous ones and get you up to speed on everything, but I know you probably are very aware of most of it anyway. We just talked about the letter that'll come. One thing, we've gotten a lot of questions about Brightline. Just to mention to you that it's really, it's very vague at this point. All that's been approved is to enter discussions with Brightline about the possibility of using our right-of-way for their project. I would expect very soon, since the protest period ended on Monday, that we'll be meeting with Brightline to try to figure out more of the details, like where their station might go, where they want to use I-4, where they want to get off I-4. But right now, we don't have a lot to go. If you look on our website, you can see their proposal, and they did show along the old high-speed rail alignment, but I think that as negotiations continue, we'll see that change as they determine where they want to enter and exit the I-4 corridor. We have been continuing to do a lot of work meeting with the community. I hope over the last 1.5 to 2 years, since we've reset the old Tampa Bay Express project, that you've seen that the community has gotten a lot more opportunities to become involved. And I hope you've also seen that we've been responsive to that, and we've made a lot of changes in our program, and we've done a lot of things that in the past perhaps we might not have done. So we're working very closely with the community. We have 2 operational improvements that are in the works right now. Of course, one is a smaller one that's going to be on State Road 60 near the Veterans, is adding another lane for a small period to help with a bottleneck. That's actually going to go to construction right in the beginning of the new year. It shouldn't be that long to construct. The other is what we call the punch-through project, where you come across the Howard Franklin Bridge, you go from 4 to 2 lanes. We're going to make it 4 to 3 lanes, and we're also going to take, if any of you come from the airport and you want to go north on 275, you go through that loop ramp, and then you automatically are merged into the through traffic. We're going to extend those merge lanes all the way up to Lois, almost to Dale Mabry. We think that's going to provide a significant amount of relief. Of course, it's not the permanent fix, but it will be something that will provide a lot of relief. That should be selected soon, and we should have the contractor out there hopefully within the next 6 months or so, and finish that in 2020. Howard Franklin Bridge, we're about ready to release the RFP. We'll go into contract procurement, and we hope that we'll have that contract team selected next year, and then the work will last about 4 years. We've gone over before all the things that are included in that, including accommodation for future light rail on the bridge, and also the pedestrian structure that will go across along with this bridge. Want to talk about 4 funding priorities. that are in the program, the Tampa Bay Next program, the Gateway Expressway, Howard Franklin Bridge, I-275 North Corridor, and West Shore Interchange. And on here, what you'll see is Gateway is actually under construction already. Howard Franklin Bridge is fully funded, but the next two that I want to talk about as our next priorities, the I-275 North Corridor, which is partially funded, and the West Shore Interchange, which has right-of-way funded, but no funding right now for design or construction. I-275 North, and this is basically from the I-4 interchange up to in the vicinity of Bears Avenue. We have agreed not to do anything that would take us outside the existing right-of-way. Anything we would do would be inside the existing right-of-way, and also that we would not put express lanes in that corridor. We'd move those to I-75. However, we do feel that there are things that need to be done. In our last year that we had the data in that section, we had over 1,600 crashes in 1 year. If you think about that, that's 6 or 7 a day. A lot of them are focused in the southern part of that when you get to people want to get on I-4. We want to construct a project within the right-of-way that will help with that I-4 exit and also help to get rid of some of the other congestion and crash problems that we have. What we would be able to do within the existing right-of-way is to add one additional general purpose lane, and that would also provide for additional merging and weaving areas, and as we get to the I-4 exit, we can make one of those lanes go into there and get that traffic away, so if people aren't trying to queue jump and go down to the end, and before you know it, you got 2 or 3 lanes blocked a good portion of the day. We're also going to make sure that the shoulder is wide enough to allow for express bus operation during congested periods, so that if we need that in the future, we will be able to use that shoulder as a transit corridor for express bus.
Can I just, when you go back to that slide, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to understand a little better.
Okay.
So you said so you would turn the shoulder kind of, the outside shoulder into that, within that area, 2 lanes as you approach I-4, and then the 1 lane that you have when you merge onto I-4, those 2 lanes would be merged into one, but they would be out of the general traffic. Is that what you're saying?
More or less, we're trying to take that traffic out of the, prevent that area. We have about a mile, sometimes 2 miles.
Right.
Where people were just, I guess they weren't, either trying to get further down before they get into the queue, or they are entering MLK. So there's a lot of confusion in there of how to get around. It's caused a lot of crashes, and so we're going to move that over. Adding the additional lane just allows us to get some of the bottlenecks in there opened up a little bit, and to get that I-4 problem not completely fixed. It'll never be completely fixed until we're able to make improvements on I-4 to receive all that, but it will provide, I think, a much safer operation.
And not to be critical, but just to understand.
Yes, and we'll also add, by the way, we're going to put noise walls along the whole route, so that'll be part of the project.
Yes, I know.
Thank you.
For anybody who lives there, that's.
Thank you. Thank you.
Both of us. But in terms of, so we could still, just so I understand this, I still, I'm not asking you to cure it, because I don't see that it has a cure, but just to understand, there's still be, I'm sure, I've thought this for 20, 30 years since I saw the first plans when I was in my late 20s as a neighborhood person. There still is going to be a lot of backup there as they queue 2 lanes to merge into one to make the turn.
Yeah, part of this operational improvement would be to widen the flyover as well, but at some point they have to merge, just because we won't be improving the I-4 section yet. But it provides a lot of, you're taking all that queuing that's causing all that friction and crashes and all that, and you're moving it into a place where you won't have that friction. They'll just be in a more orderly way as they go around the bridge. The other thing, if you ever stop and look at it, like I do, I look at it. If you ever stop and look at the bridge, you look at the bridge, all that traffic's backed up. But when you look at the bridge, you see big distances between each vehicle. And it's because of how it's merging and weaving. This would provide a much more orderly operation as they go across the bridge, and we wouldn't have, the backups would not be as far.
Yeah, elevation is clear, and you have that hump too, so you don't see it until you're there, and then you don't have but a short distance to compensate for being in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Right.
as well as the oncoming traffic from MLK. So it's, a recipe for disaster, but
Yeah.
it'd be great to have it better.
And one more question. So is there any way, like, just in terms of the, I'm not surprised at all the crashes all the time, but is there, do you know, do you know what kind of percentage or anything that particular place accounts for in terms of our crash issues?
I don't know, we do have that data. Do you know offhand, guys, what that number is? We used to show a heat map every now and then in our presentations, and it would show like if red meant really bad. Most of it was down in the Hillsborough, down
Right.
to, that area. As you get further to the north, it wasn't quite as
Right.
bad. But yes, it was focused mostly from Hillsborough to the south. The other thing I forgot to mention in this project, we're also going to go ahead and, for the underpasses, improve those underpasses so we can provide a better pedestrian and bicycle and just interconnection between the sides of the interstate. That would be part of that project as
Yeah,
well.
lighting is critical. in
And
that.
lighting, yes. All that would be part of this project, all within the existing right-of-way. And again, I know we have the PD&E that's going to start regarding the regional transit study. I have a feeling that now that Hart is going to have money to hopefully build an arterial system, that we'll see when the PD&E comes through, that we're going to see something different than we saw in the feasibility study that would so I would see the shoulder use being more of an express bus route and then tying into arterial BRTs and so forth. But we want to provide it there so we have it if we need it. It'll be available. Okay? All right, get to the West Shore interchange. As you know, this is not funded right now. It's not in the 5-year work program, except for right-of-way. We do have a little bit of right-of-way, but none of the right-of-way that we're acquiring has been anything controversial with the owners. Most of them, if anything, they said, give us enough time to relocate, because most of them are like office buildings and things like that. But most of it has not been that. But when I looked at some of the facts about West Shore, I was really surprised. I didn't quite know it was this much, but there's 96,000 employees today, not including any future expansion. Include 15,000 residents. There's 4,000 businesses in the West Shore area, 250 restaurants, 39 hotels, and almost 20 million passengers at the airport. And that's today, it's a problem already, and it's continuing to grow. And so I asked my folks to look at what are we looking at in the future out here. And if you look, I wanted to show you a few of the projections. If you look at the Howard Franklin Bridge, today there's about 178,000. By 2045, we're looking at 260,000 vehicles. If you're looking at the I-275 coming from the downtown area, right now it's over 200,000, about 202. The projections show 327,000 vehicles per day. If you look at State Road 60, just north of 275, today it's 211,000. It's going to be 295,000. If you look at to and from Tampa International Airport, existing AADT, 57,000. 2045, it'll be 133,000 going in and out of the airport every day. If you look at State Road 60, just north of the airport exit coming in the Veterans area, today it's 223,000. It's going to be 332,000. And from the Courtney Campbell Causeway, 84,000 today, 106,000 in the future. To and from the Veterans Expressway today, there's 136,000. Future projection, 206,000. This project is badly needed today. When we hit the reset button, what happened was our folks in Tallahassee said, you know what? And at the time, I admit there was a lot of, we'll take a lot of the fault for the communications and all that occurred, but there was a lot of, at that time, folks did not want us to move forward with our projects. They said we need to go. We went into the SEIS, which we're doing now, but never was the West Shore interchange really the root of the controversy. But that was taken. The money that we had, about $500 and some million that we had, that would have been in a couple years from now to start building this, was taken and given to Orlando for the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate. And the reason they took that money was they said they have support. They provided us with support from the regional MPO and everybody else, and so we're more comfortable putting money there. Come back and see me when you have support from your local agencies on a regional priority project. I've already gone to Pinellas County and gotten Board of County Commissioner and MPO support, same in Pasco County. Yesterday, Hart graciously gave us support. PSTA is providing us a letter that we're supposed to get soon. The TMA supported it. We're going before T-BARTA on Friday. I want to go up to Tallahassee with all the support I can have to tell them that we don't want to wait 5 years to get this thing started, which means we'll probably be 10 to 12 years before we see the benefits of this project. We just can't wait. And so that's part of the reason today that I'm coming to ask you for the support. Some of the things the project would do, it would provide direct express route lanes access to the airport, to and from the airport, going to West Shore. That also can serve as a transit corridor. That's something that will really help, I think, the local transit as you start to develop that. We're also going to be reconnecting some of the streets down in the area that were previously disconnected when the interstate first came through. This is going to allow for a lot of better circulation of traffic, and they don't have to go through those few places right now where it's the only way to get across the interstate. That is highly taxing the area right now. And we'll also try to do the best we can with aesthetic improvements. But transit, I can tell you over the last year and a half that I've been in this position, our staff has really worked hard to try to find every opportunity from our state transit money to bring it to Tampa. And sometimes it was tough because we didn't really have a lot of the local money to match it with. We found things that we didn't need. We found money for the trolley system to make it free and to expand the service hours and the frequency of the transit, hoping that that will help us in the expansion study that we hope to get federal money for, because the better ridership we have now, the more likely we're going to be able to get that approved and get federal money. That's where we can leverage this money that we're going to have from the penny so much. 25% will bring us another 75% in state and federal money if we do our job on that. It also is going to provide buses the opportunity to work and operate within the express lanes for free. That provides a reliable travel time for transit commuters. It'll provide better opportunities for first and last mile through the new connections in the West Shore area. And also it's going to create that transit corridor. Until we build this, the transit corridor, it will end when you get to the east or the north end of the Howard Franklin Bridge. This will allow it to go through and connect to the other systems that we're going to be building. The main reason today, in addition to giving you an update on where we are on the Tampa Bay Next program, is to ask for the support of the MPO that I can bring up to our new secretary. Most of you probably have heard our Secretary Mike Dew resigned. We have an interim right now who is not interested in being the new secretary, so we will have a new secretary. When that new secretary comes in, I want to be one of the first people in his office to show him what we have, put this on his radar and say, we want this money to come back to Tampa. It's the #1 regional priority, and here's the folks who are supporting that statement. So that's where I am today.
Okay, this is how we're going to do this. He just gave a report, update on Tampa Bay Next. We're going to ask if you have any questions on that report. Then we revert back to the intermodal system concerning the letter. So are there any questions concerning the Secretary's report? Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, comment. Thank you very much for that. I don't usually start off with personal anecdotes, but I had taken the Gandy Bridge to St. Pete for a meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was about 5 o'clock. I got out of the meeting, and I just mindlessly got onto the Howard Franklin Bridge. And as soon as I did, I realized what I had done. And I sat there for the next hour in complete gridlock. And I just want to remind everybody that, you know, when the original TBX passed, I think the critical reason that it did was because that project was included in it. It was viewed as that critical for this region. So I am totally in support of going forward with this. 4 lanes into 2, we simply have got to move beyond that, I think, as quickly as possible. I also just wanted to take this opportunity, though, to mention something that I've said before, and that is that I think as a region, we can do better than a concrete slab across the bay. I think we've got to look at the aesthetics of this new bridge and really commit ourselves to trying to build something that we can be proud of, that will give our region some identity, something like the Sunshine Skyway. Or, you know, it may not be the Golden Gate Bridge or the George Washington Bridge, but you guys at FDOT, I think, have done a tremendous job with some of the expressway overpasses that you've done recently in terms of some of the design elements, and I would love to see some of those design elements incorporated into the building building of this bridge. And I would like to propose that perhaps Hillsborough and Pinellas could compete with one another for design ideas and see who can come up with something that really captures the spirit of the community on each side of the bay. Maybe the bridge design will change halfway over the hump and look different on the Pinellas side than on the Hillsborough side. But I really do think we have this opportunity to build something that will give our region some identity and some character in the way that the Sunshine Skyway does, and I hope that we'll take that opportunity.
We will.
Thank you.
Any further comments concerning the Tampa Bay Next update?
I just have a question.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
And on a page, well, when you're talking about the growth rates, you're speaking of AADT. What?
Yeah, it's average daily traffic. I mean, it's how many cars per day in both directions would utilize that road on one day, average day.
So I'm assuming that means that everyone that is going into those growth factors are all in a single car versus whatever enhancements we choose to invest in as far as transit is concerned.
Yeah, this comes from the model. It's primarily based on land use is what it's typically, and I'm not an expert on the model, Beth. I don't know if you all want to speak to that. Yeah.
The model's based on population and employment, and so it's sort of productions and attractions, origin destination based. So yeah, it's a large portion of the model is single occupancy vehicle, but it does account for the mode split. So it accounts for freight and all that as well as transit.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Is it basically the number of people increasing to get to those locations? And then lastly, based on a conversation I had with you earlier, there was some hesitation on supporting anything that would be done prior to the SEIS being completed. However, when we spoke about the fact that you are pretty far down the line on that's coming up rather too quickly, and when this gets proposed, we'll more than likely be close to being done with that. Also, this actually stops, like this section of the program, of this enhancement stops at the Boulevard Bridge, is that?
It would be before that. Our intent was, if you remember the maps we've shown you previously, segment 4 is basically ends at I keep calling it the north, but the east end of the West Shore interchange. And segment 5 goes all the way up to the river. It goes from the West Shore interchange up to the river. Now, one thing to remember is that segment we've already built out as far as we're going to go. Any improvements we make north of the West Shore interchange will be in the median, either express lanes and we also have the transit corridor in there in addition to the express lanes. This project would not, it would not be, it's completely separate from the multimodal center, so that would be handled differently. And it also will not predetermine any of the alternatives that could be built up at the downtown interchange. How far we have to go, we're just gonna have to model it because we don't want the traffic we don't want to end the lanes so quick that the traffic backs up into the interchange. We want to give it enough room to bleed into the existing roadway.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your report.
Mr. Wagner, you recognize?
Question was answered. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pano, you recognize?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the board understands that this is critical. This project is critical for the airport to continue to grow. And although the slide says 19.6 million passengers, we're going to be well above 21 million passengers very shortly. And we all like to read the stories about new flights to Amsterdam, and everyone pats you on the back. If we don't pass this, they ain't going to be coming here, because as soon as we get them at 500 miles an hour over here, they stop. And you try crossing across Kennedy at that interchange to try to find a way through, or if you're like Councilman Cohen and you want to make a flight to Amsterdam, you might have to go tomorrow, because the Howard Franklin won't get you to the gate. So this is extremely important for us. Thank you.
Mr. Kemp, you recognize?
Thank you. First off, I am very happy to have, again, I'll say, the relief of the extra lane done now at West Shore, because I think that has been the biggest regional bottleneck for decades, and I can't even ever believe that it was ever even conceived or designed that way. I've always been, it's always made me skeptical about accepting design, as stated. And I'll just state some of the things, this kind of bleeds over between the two, and I'll state some of the things I said yesterday. Well, one is, I have to say, I am very skeptical of projections like this, and I think we would be served better sometimes by historical projections so that we get a better idea of this, because so often I find the projections to be overwrought, and also, we've had a flattening out, as you know, for several years, for the first time historically since the 30s of our vehicle travel. I know that it has risen again, but I feel like we're very uninformed as an MPO and as, as people looking at this about this historical nature. I also wonder about the projections, because this strikes me a lot as being maybe, I know with the automated vehicles and on where we haven't had the discussion, but it seems to me people are very intent on thinking of automated vehicles not as transit vehicles, let's say, that hold more than 4 people, but as having these single vehicles that can even be 0 occupancy. And, so I just question all this and how it plays out in transit, and I have real difficulties with these kinds of projections. I'm very pleased with what I see as the West Shore, what's being done at West Shore with the rest of the report. But I will say that, and I just, yesterday, as I said, it was this board, it was elected officials all over the region, and I was kind of taken aback when I read in the paper after 2 or 3 years of doing this, and activists all knew what the plan was on the bridge, but elected officials did not understand because they didn't have a clear view of what exactly was going to happen in terms of losing a lane across the bridge. I'm very happy that that got changed and that people were more aware. I'm very pleased with the changes that have happened at I-275 because of civic engagement, because of what people have done, because of how they've cared. I am concerned about what is going forward from yesterday's letter and today, not because of West Shore, but I do want to get this map that, I don't think people understand.
Commissioner Kemp, is this sticking to the subject of what
Yeah,
is residential?
totally. Because what you're asking about and what this was a predicate to was segment number 4, and we talk about West Shore, but this is also a funding of segment number 5, correct? Correct. And see, I think that's really not clear. There. Okay, do it in front of the camera or something? Okay, and maybe, but I think, I am fine with at least what I think I know about West Shore and everything. I'm really not fine with what I know about, and I know you say it's in the envelope, but it is, and you talk about transit, but we do not understand at all the infrastructure there, the connections, whatever, and I feel very uncomfortable. And I know when I talked to you personally about this, you said that this plan doesn't have to be, or letter have to be advanced right now. I would like to have a greater comfort level, honestly, before I went forward with segment 5 is my issue, not segment 4, which is the West Shore, and that's all we're talking about and focused on, but not segment 5.
Let me come in here on this. I think you were at the meeting yesterday when this was brought before Hart. And at this particular point in time, you are not even in concrete mode with what she's speaking of. What you're talking about right now is wanting a letter of support to get in line at the new Secretary of Transportation's table to ask for dollars. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the other point I just mentioned is that, you mentioned to go into 4 lanes, 2 lanes at the Howard Franklin Bridge. We just don't want to repeat that by not going far enough into segment 5 to blend the lanes out into the traffic. My staff and I would be glad to sit down with you individually, with any of you individually, show you exactly how that segment 5 would work. Originally, 4 and 5 were planned to be built together, but now we're not. We're building only the portion of 5 that we need to make sure we don't create a bottleneck at West Shore after we just, and we're talking anywhere from $1 billion to $1.4 billion. That's not easy to come by, so.
Secretary Gwen, let me advise you that if any commissioner or any member of this MPO wants to meet with you, that you and your staff sit down and meet with them about their concerns, okay?
Absolutely.
We're running late here.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the letters to the new Secretary of Transportation.
Okay, now we're reverting back to
we already have that.
to D under 4. So that's a motion by Mr. Lopano to approve the letters, both the letters,
Yes.
second by Mr. Wagner. So any discussion? Well, Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
I just want to put on the record what we put on the record yesterday, just for this group and for the people who are here and listening, that there is still an SEIS to be done, including 4 and 5, and that this letter does not commit us to anything that that we might want to change based on that SEIS. And also, there's still questions about how we'll handle the express lanes, whether tolled or untolled, and that will all be settled as we move forward. But that's not what we are being asked to support today.
No, we'll follow whatever the SEIS requirements are.
Mm-hmm.
The approved SEIS.
And in fact, I like this letter better than Hart's letter because there is a sentence that says further development of the project design will provide the detailed information necessary. So I have great comfort in passing this along today. Thank you for your explanation.
I'm sorry. Mr. Green, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my question was answered also.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion
Thank you
adopted.
very much.
Executive Director's report, quickly.
It's painful to have newbies, sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's
I didn't say that, but
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board members. And very quickly, we have spent some time looking at the language of the county charter amendment about transportation funding and what the MPO's role is with that. As you may know, there is 1% of those proceeds set aside for planning and development that the MPO would be receiving. And so the purpose of that, as it is stated in the charter amendment, is for the MPO to support the work of the implementing agencies and to support the independent oversight committee. So I have scheduled a meeting with the leadership of the implementing agencies so that we can start to better understand how the MPO can support the implementing agencies. And similarly, when the first meeting of the Oversight Committee is convened, we'll be asking that question of the Oversight Committee as well. I would like to then come back to you in the February timeframe with what we have heard and what we would propose to use the funds for the MPO's planning activities in the coming fiscal year. So it'd be a couple of months from now, but hopefully get some feedback from those organizations that we're tasked with supporting. Questions about that? Okay, we do have a regional meeting coming up on December the 14th of all of the MPO chairs of the 8-county area of West Central Florida. And I'll be reaching out to both Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Kemp's offices about their availability. We'll be looking at the regional priority list. I'm sure we will be talking about the West Shore Interchange again. And finally, our next MPO board meeting is not going to be the first Tuesday of January because I believe that's January 1st. It is proposed to be January 8th, and I believe we are back in this room. Thank you, sir.
Need to get that out to everyone as soon as possible about that. Okay. Is there any further business for us to discuss today? I hope the hell not.
I do have a comment. Sorry.
What? Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yesterday, we had major historical development at the port. We announced the arrival of Costco Ocean Shipping. It's coming to Tampa now. It's going to provide direct Asia service to Tampa on a weekly basis. So that's a major development at the port. In the past, containers have been coming as far away as LA Long Beach into this community. We're going to start capturing those containers here in Tampa. With these new gantry cranes we acquired 2 years ago, it's allowed us to bring these larger container vessels into the port. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try to send copies of the articles and our press releases to all the board members.
Very good. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any further business? Seeing none, we adjourn.